What's distinctive about Christian historiography, if you want to put it that way?
Sure. And hagiography, being a compound word, writing about the saints and glossing over the unseemly bad stuff and just elevating everything is great. One example that I use a lot in my teaching is that I'll say, okay, pick someone from the 20th century that you really respect. Margaret, and these are usually conservative groups. So Margaret Thatcher, Churchill, Reagan, Pope John Paul, those are typical people that are mentioned. And now tell me 3 or 4 things you really like about them. Boom, 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 boom. 3 or 4 things. Say, well, again, that's not really the question that I'm setting you up a little bit here. What I'm really interested in, tell me 3 or 4 things you think that they really screwed up on, or things where they were deficient, and people struggle, and I think if you're responsible, let's just start with, as a Christian, I think we have great advantages here to both embrace if we have a big view of sin and our own fallenness, then we realize, yes, people can do wonderful, amazing things, but they can also do wicked, horrible things. And those aren't necessarily 2 different people. That's the same person. And it doesn't mean Christians don't grow. It doesn't mean it's okay that Christians are hypocrites. None of that. It just means there's a complexity of factors. I mean, we tend to use the word whitewash. I mean, look at King David as an example. I mean, you're talking about, if you're just starting without even knowing that story, we just kind of blank slate and said, okay, we're going to call a guy a man after God's own heart who's an adulterer, a murderer, and then covers it up. What do you think about that? What do you think about a religion that does that sort of thing? It's like, and again, there's some complexity of factors. I think with King David, one thing, again, I would say is significant is he never went after idols. He never chased after foreign gods. So, but still, there's some tension points there to wrestle with. I think when we go to the past, if we're honest with ourselves, if we see our own duplicity, we see our own checkered character, we see our own, at times, wow, I'm really glad I said this hard thing, or I was courageous here, but I'm also embarrassed to think about other times where I recoiled and I was afraid, and the fear of man was pushing me to do something that now I'm embarrassed that either I did or didn't do. So I think if we take that realistic, again, redemptive and realistic view of ourselves and of people in general to the past, then we look at people and frankly, you can see this, that's the resources we have as Christians. A lot of non-Christians, they obviously don't have that appreciation. So what they're doing, obviously, is pretty narrow as far as who stands the scrutiny of having a statue, or who stands the scrutiny of being honored, is the person that in their mind has been so vetted in so many. Well, there's going to literally, no pun intended, there's going to be no statues standing. There's going to be no one standing. Because as the vetting gets tighter and tighter, it's like no one's going to be there. It's going to be an empty room. So as a Christian, we can say, okay, if I have a hero of the past, there's been some good books. Andrew Roberts' biography, I know, does this on Churchill and others. It's not hagiography, even though he really honors and believes Churchill was a great man and a great leader, but he unpacks ways that Churchill really screwed up. I mean, Reagan, we could do the same thing. We can say, here are all the good things Reagan did, considerable things, but we can say, well, maybe one of his great strengths in finding competent people and then just letting them kind of delegated authority, that maybe Iran-Contra could have been prevented because he just wasn't as aware as he should have been as the executive in chief, the chief executive of, like, that's what was going on. So I think having a realistic and, again, redemptive view of ourselves, of what God is doing with people, taking that to the past, and again saying, we're not looking, we can't, if we're looking for someone or an event that's just pristine, good luck, finding something. There's just not going to be there.